We are live. This is Frank Keeney. This is Steve Kilberg. Do I pronounce that correctly?
You did, Frank. Thanks.
Oh, great. How are things going for you today?
Today's good, good. Like a lot of days, though, some little fires come at you, and you spend time kind of dealing with them. But that's just how it goes, right?
Sure, sure. So tell us all about a little bit. I don't know much about your background, but how you got the idea to start doing e-commerce and kind of what your path was to get to where you are now.
Yeah, no, great question. I could probably talk about that for a long time, but I'll keep it kind of short.
Okay.
I think like a lot of people, I started, just looking for something online. And for a while, I was doing some consulting with local businesses and other colleagues that I had. And I was just a little frustrated with that because, as you probably have experienced, Frank, because I know you've done some of that in the past, as well as sometimes the businesses that you're dealing with really didn't appreciate the work that you were putting in and delivering them leads. And as a side comment, I think it's funny to share this, but I had one customer of mine that, I was just doing some lead gen and I was tracking all the phone calls I was delivering him. And he actually said to stop. He said he was getting too many leads because he didn't think that this was going to work in the first place. And he said, we need to stop doing this marketing thing because I think I have enough leads now. And I was like, what? So that I kind of got frustrated with that. And anyway, long story is I started doing some e-commerce, was in a couple different groups, and like a lot of people that go through this, it's doesn't happen overnight. And I think
Right.
a lot of people come into this with a false expectation of, well, I went through a course and I should be making thousands of dollars now, and it just doesn't work that way. And one of the things that I made the mistake of doing, and I think a lot of people that have come into your course or probably tried other courses, is either they've kind of skipped around and kind of said, well, I've kind of know this, so I'll skip that. And I learned that lesson the hard way, that you can't do that, especially when you're new to something. And another program I was part of before joining yours, and I'll lead into why I joined yours. I was kind of struggling with some things, and the guy said to me, "Are you doing everything like step by step?" And I had said, no, I skipped around a little bit. And he says, well, that's why it's not working, because you have to follow the sequence. And when I did, I started to get some success, which was, was a big relief, but that didn't happen overnight, right? That happened over a period of a few months. And so anyway, what led me to you was, I had some success, kind of been up and down, had some months where I made, a few $1,000s, but I was really struggling with my ads and my video ads more specifically. And I had transitioned to video ads before I'd come into your course. But I just was, again, it was up and down, and it was just really, really frustrating. And what's ironic is I had actually met you through another course that you were part of, and was at an event where you spoke and you talked about, the importance of videos and how you've kind of built out a process. And that's when I kind of got, okay, now I need to follow Frank a little bit more.
Was that in Austin?
It was actually in Los Angeles.
Oh, the Los Angeles. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that event. So kind of leading up to this was that I was really struggling with, just making my videos work. Again, I'm fine with doing the videos, and I, like you suggest, I shoot everything with my iPhone. When I tell people that I make these videos with my iPhone, they're blown away. Ironically, even my Facebook rep one day, but a couple of months ago, asked me some questions. She said, how are you doing this? And I said, with my iPhone, and she was blown away. And I said, it's, people make it too hard, right? But really the stuff that I wanted to share with people here, and we can dig into this a little bit, but the real benefit I got from your course was going through the process of getting the sequence down in the videos, because as you know, it's critical to have that right. And I, early on when I was getting the course, there was only a few people that were showing up for the calls, which blew me away, because it's like, we pay this money because we want to generate this income, and yet people are not showing up. And so I shared the video, you gave me some tweaks, and lo and behold, literally things started changing and, taking off. And I had to make some changes, with the targeting and testing and so on and so forth. But literally, since I've joined this course, I've had a record month after record month in terms of revenue. Mm-hmm. And this month's a little bit off, but it's really because earlier in the month I had a problem with inventory, because I've been selling out of the product faster than I anticipated, because we've been scaling. Mm-hmm. And now we're doing tens of thousands per month in revenue. And so that's been my bigger challenge, quite frankly, is getting the inventory turned around. But the point I wanted to make was that your course allowed me to kind of really get down to that one area saying, okay, I'm stuck here and I need you to look at my video, and you gave me the tips I was looking for. And it was like another colleague of mine told me, he says, sometimes very small changes,
Mhm.
very small hinges can swing open very big doors. And that is exactly what happened with me.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it sounds like you're shipping from the USA.
Correct. The
That,
stuff that we're shipping, we do some drop shipping, but even in that case, we're shipping from the US where we've got some relationships. But for the most part, the stuff that I drive all my traffic from is all stuff that I'm sourcing from Asia, shipping it to a warehouse here in the States,
right.
and then shipping it out. Because I just learned from, and this was my preference, I just didn't want to have that lag time because, as you know, when people don't get their stuff, they start calling. And quite frankly, last month, and this is why we had to turn our traffic down earlier this month, was we were out of inventory for 2 weeks
Ah,
and people started calling and emailing. And so we had some cancellations, but for the most part, we learned that if you communicate to people and say, hey, we're back ordered, it's coming, a large majority of people were fine with that as long as you have that communication. That was key.
yeah, the communication is big deal when you're dealing with customers.
Correct.
And yeah, now you talked earlier that you did some consulting and you were driving leads and the kinds of. Now,
Yeah.
I actually tried that about 4 or 5 years ago just to see what that was like.
Yep.
And I don't know if you felt the same way that I did, but I felt like I was an employee again.
I did. I did.
So, and then after a little bit of time of doing that, I move those, got someone who was interested in having some customers, let them have them. And then I just went right back to doing e-commerce. I'd rather have, tens of thousands of, people of buyers than, a dozen or half a dozen or a couple dozen of clients that, it seems like you'd have to pay attention to them all the time.
That is correct. Yes. And like I said, the thing that I was frustrated with was when I was delivering value and delivering what we'd agreed to, they didn't appreciate it. And then of course they didn't want to pay for it. And that was the tipping point for me. I said, I'm done with that. So yeah.
Right.
So I've definitely found my home in e-commerce. I truly love this.
So is this now full-time for you or is this still a part-time?
No, it's full time. Yeah. So I'm able to make a full time income. And, again, there's always things to keep learning. As you know, Facebook keeps changing. And quite frankly, the last few months, our biggest challenge, quite frankly, is trying to be managing our inventory and just trying to scale the business as fast and as appropriate as we can, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So how long has e-commerce been a full-time for you?
Well, I started doing this. I kind of took the plunge. So it's been 2 years, and I was doing some other things. And leading up to you back in January when I joined this program was, excuse me, I was in a different course. And let me just clear my throat. So hang on.
Sure.
I had some good months with this other program, but it was still struggling with some things. So I've been doing it full time 2 years because I said I'm not going back to a job, right?
Right. You just make it happen.
I just got to make it happen. And I think that's one of the things that I know you've probably experienced. Well, I know you've experienced this, Frank, is that people will try one or two things and they say, oh, this doesn't work. And they give up. And you have to keep going. You have to. It's like, if you really want to do this, it's how bad do you want to do it? Right.
And what I found is that often people will give up way, way too early. Starting an e-commerce business is starting a business. I've supported my family since 100% on e-commerce since 2001, and it's definitely a long-term business. It is. I don't think I would. I don't ever regret leaving. And I used to do consulting just before that, and then I was an employee. But that's something I just don't ever think about going back to that. And so, what sort of now? I'm not going to ask you what you're selling, but can you tell us a little bit about how you picked a niche or a product, just maybe how those that worked for you and how you came about, a product or a niche that worked for yourself?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And this is what I've shared with some of my friends that I've evolved in the industry over time, is that, and again, this is just my personal preference, is to find a niche that you have an interest in to some degree. It doesn't have to be your all like hardcore passion, but to have some kind of an interest. Because what I see, and this is a mistake that I made, going back when I first started, was I'm like, oh, I can make money doing that, but I don't know anything about it. So to give an example, I'm not a fisherman, but I know you can make a lot of money selling fishing accessories. And so I've seen people chase the money, so to speak. I think it's a mistake that people make because going back to what you were just saying, you've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. And I told this to actually a friend of mine about a month ago. I said, if you really want to do this, think about this in 6 months from now. Do you still want to be doing research on finding products to sell to this niche? And that's kind of why I fell into is my wife and I have a common interest in a niche. And so we said, let's just try this. And we first started, trying to sell the t-shirts, and we had a little bit of success there, but just enough to kind of make us realize, okay, there's something here. Mm-hmm. And again, we're seeing other people do that. So we knew that we could make this work. And so literally going back to answer your other part of your question is, what products are we finding to sell? It's literally just digging in, asking, what our avatar, what our audience wants. And we've got an active fan page that we're constantly posting content to, because I've learned that that's what Facebook wants. And that's another way to do market research, if you will. And we'll occasionally post Amazon affiliate links to see if people can buy some stuff there. I mean, there's some spy tools out there that we will use, but we don't use that to be, we're going to sell this because this thing sells well on Amazon or this thing sells well here. We really look at it as, is it something that we know we've either used ourselves, I know you're strong on that, or that we feel we can sell, and then we'll just test some stuff and we'll put up a funnel, and I'm using ClickFunnels a lot like you are, and we'll just drive a little bit of traffic. And if we can make just a handful of sales, I feel confident that we can then start to scale it from there. And then I will try to get some samples from suppliers. As a matter of fact, I just got a packet in the mail here from some people in Asia, so I'm going through some stuff there, and we're gonna do the same thing. Take some pictures, make a little video, and throw it up on a funnel and see if we can make it work.
Great, that's fantastic. And so right now, your best performing product right now is going through a funnel.
That is correct. Yes.
Right, and you're leveraging I mean, I know the answer to this, but tell us why you think using a funnel to sell a product is better than just through a store. What works? Why is that important to you?
Well, what's worked well for me, and again, a little of this goes back to when I first started doing the e-commerce, the group that I was part of, they were kind of pushing people towards ClickFunnels. But even that aside, I saw the power of the one-click upsells, because that's where you get, again, if you're going to buy media, as I've learned, is that he who spends the most can then afford to spend more money. Right now, I mean, I'm not spending millions of dollars. I'm not competing with, big businesses. But at the same time, the way I look at it, the way I've internalized it is, if I can maximize my revenue or my average cart value, if you will, then I can spend money and I can compete. And what I find really funny is I've got some friends who work for some larger companies. A good example is I've got a friend, actually it's his wife, that she works for a fitness company, and they actually, so here's what's kind of funny is they're a brand that a lot of people might recognize if you're fitness related, if you will, and they only allow her to spend $2,000 a month on Facebook ads. A month. And so I'm looking at this and saying they can't compete, right? Because they don't understand the power of this stuff. So I'm spending, hundreds, if not thousands a day. And so I can compete with a company like that. And I'm just a one-man band with a few outsourcers in terms of my fulfillment, et cetera. So it's a long answer to your question. But again, the way I'm also summarizing this is e-commerce, whether you're selling, it doesn't matter what you're selling, it's just math, right? So if I can get enough conversions, et cetera, I can get my average cart, then I know how much traffic I can drive. So
right, exactly. So all right, so now you have this business. Okay, you've mentioned that you outsource the fulfillment is outsourced.
Yep.
You outsource your customer service.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So you're not taking customer calls. You're not packing boxes. You're just growing your business.
That is correct. I packed boxes for 1 week, and the person, if somebody I was working with, they said, "Why are you going to do that? You're not going to like it." And I realized after a week, I do not want to do this. So.
Right. And it's very easy to get to a point where there's not enough hours in the day to do it.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. Now, the other thing that I held on to way too long, and I know that you push this, but I'll mention this to help others, is I was doing the customer service way too long, and then I outsourced it to another company, but then I was still kind of stuck in the middle.
Oh,
So about 9 months ago, I finally pushed all that off, and I look back and saying, why did I wait so long to kind of have somebody just do all of that in terms of answering emails and phone calls? They'll go into my Stripe account, they'll issue refunds, and I push all that stuff out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So tell us a little bit about, so you've got this, it sounds like you've been doing this for a while. I didn't know, I mean, I didn't know exactly how long you've been doing this full time, but now when you started, you, at some point you went from an employee to,
Yep.
so it sounds like you went from an employee to trying out consulting and lead generation. So that transformation from being a full-time employee to being an entrepreneur, tell us a little bit about how you manage your time, because when you're working a full-time, you may have a commute, and now you've got to somehow figure out some hours during the week to get that business up and going. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of shimmed your dreams of becoming an entrepreneur into time that you were doing other things. You had that job, and how did you get those hours out so you could actually put in the time that was necessary?
No, it's a great question. So it kind of got started just through helping a few friends out because they knew that I knew some things about the internet, right? How to leverage the power of the internet. And then when I had them as a couple of small clients, then I had bought some courses on just trying to, leverage some other tools that were out there back. And this goes back a few years ago. And so I said, okay, let me start to do this. And then got another client. Then I had a job separation. And then I'm like, okay, well, I can either go look for a job or I can kind of push through with this. And then I had some family things kind of come into play as well, which then kind of forced me to saying, I really do need the flexibility. And so I said, I'm going to, if I got to make this happen. And so it was really my desire. I needed the flexibility, which is still a strong desire and why for me right now is just having that freedom is too important to me. I mean, I was telling some friends recently that I work 7 days a week, but to me, it's not work. I mean, because I enjoy doing this, right?
Right.
I mean, granted, there are certain things that I do that I don't want to do or would prefer not to, but it's just, I don't care what you do, you're going to have that. But the fact that I work 7 days a week does not faze me one bit, and I enjoy it. And my wife actually, now she gets it, because for a while she was like, well, maybe you should go get a job, right? But now she is fully on board.
Right. Okay. So, and you mentioned that you're using ClickFunnels to sell your e-com products.
Yes.
I'm assuming you also have a Shopify store that kind of goes along with that.
That is correct. Yes.
And then what sort of tools are you using to connect those together?
Well,
yeah.
I've set up recently app trends, and
okay.
but I'm not utilizing it effectively. I'll just leave it at that right now. But so just to give you some highlights, and I know some people have had problems with getting the data of like your sales from ClickFunnels into whatever system you're using for the fulfillment. I've used ShipStation, and I've been able to integrate it, and it works fine. Excuse me, it works fine for me. Mm-hmm. But I know that some people have had issues, which is why they use app trends. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, I clear my throat again. But I've been okay. So all my orders from ClickFunnels go right to ShipStation. My fulfillment center, they log in through their login. They print the labels out. They pack the boxes. They pack the envelopes, and they send everything out. So that, quite frankly, is very, very seamless. But I need to leverage the power between the two much better.
Right. So as you've been growing the business, you mentioned a few things, but what are the what's like, tell us a struggle and tell us like something really great about, overcoming something like in recently. So like, what was like a big struggle and a big winning moment?
Yes, I know. Well, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier, but I can expand on that. Is that, at the end of the day, we're leveraging the power of Facebook to generate all that traffic coming in, right? And so really where I've had some challenges is just getting my videos to work and getting that engagement, right? Making sure. So that's been one of the biggest challenges I've had. Like a year ago, this time frame, I was pulling my hair out because I was so frustrated because I'd have a video that would work okay for like 3 weeks and then it would just die off. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking it was the targeting. So I tried more targeting and just would keep testing. But the bottom line was just not giving up because I said, there's just no way I've come so far into this to give up, and
Right.
I've have other friends who've kind of started behind me, so to speak, and have catapulted way ahead of me, and so that's a motivating
Oh
factor as
yeah.
well. And maybe to help some of the new people coming on board is that sometimes I know when you get on board, it's frustrating, it's very overwhelming. But as Frank teaches, just you got to take one step at a time and just kind of come through. You have to show up on the calls. Like it's
Yeah.
amazing how many people don't show up on the calls with questions. It's like, do the sequence that Frank tells you to do, and then when you get stuck, make a list and come to the calls and ask those questions, or go to the group, because
Right.
Frank or even myself or other people will go in and answer some of those
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit that, and you've told me in the past that there were certain things on those calls that something I told you about what to do on your video. I'm not asking for any particular details, but tell us like how little of a thing that was, or how big of a thing you had to change. What was the kind of thing that you needed to do that took it from something that was doing maybe so-so to something that you were able to really scale?
No, that's a great question. That goes back to the big issue I was having, right? So, like you say, it's that first 3 to 5 to maybe 6 seconds you've got to capture someone's attention, right? And so, what I thought was telling the story or getting their attention, it was not doing that. And so I had some sequences in my video that was basically out of sync. And you specifically said, take this and put it up front. And the other tip you gave me was some of the text calls that I had them all over the place. You said, put them on the bottom. So literally it was those two things of moving the sequences around, putting the text or the text call on the bottom. And then also the other key thing, which is what I've learned over time, was you have to give it some time, because the bottom line is you're gathering data, because you have to let and see how your targeting is responding to that ad. And within a short period of time, now depending upon what you're spending, so I know that's going to factor in, but as you know, Frank, you can spend as little as $20 or $50 and get a good feel for, okay, is this video going to work? Is it generating me leads, or is it generating me some sales? And then from there, you just kind of keep tweaking and scaling from there. But it was really those two things. Again, sorry, long answer to the question, was just move some sequences around the video and change the text callouts, and that was something that really catapulted me.
Yeah. I've seen that often, where it's just a few little tweaks can make a huge difference. And take something where it's just not really working all that well, and it's if you've got some if you've got some good scenes already, often it's just a matter of resequencing and a little bit of editing, and how much time you spend on something that can make a huge difference.
Yeah, and maybe to add one more thing that's helped me is when some of the products that we have. I mean, yes, there are competitors on Amazon, but what I did was I went to the feedback or the reviews, if you will, on Amazon, and I literally read 5 pages of the reviews. So if there's like 1 or 2 like bestsellers, I went to basically they're my competitors, and I read all the reviews and said, okay, what are people struggling with? And I just made a list, and you know this, there's some commonalities you're going to start to see, right? And so I use that to make my videos. As I said, this product is going to solve this problem or help you with this issue, because this one is not. And I believe, it's the fact that we're making solid sales. I think that's really helped, quite frankly.
Oh yeah. Well, by doing that, you're doing what you need to do to understand the people that have the potential to purchase the item.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I think we're coming towards the end of this. Any like big advice? What's your number one piece of advice for people who are either starting an e-commerce business or have something and they're looking to grow it?
Great question. So a couple of things is pick a niche or try something that you have an interest in. It doesn't have to be, again, a strong passion, but if you like to cook, maybe something around that. There's plenty of accessories, and kind of leads me to my next comment is to really think about accessories, because there's so many things and so many niches out there that you can sell small accessories or even medium-sized accessories and make the math work. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, just don't give up. And if you paid money to join Frank's course, you got to show up to the calls and you have to do the work, because Frank, none of us, the reason you're going through to learn this is so you can internalize it. And then the thing that I'm at now is once you understand how this works, it literally just becomes math. And then you can plug into any product and then you can scale and you have a real business then. Because quite frankly, I'm at a point where, I want to sell my business at some point. Now, again, am I going to make millions of dollars? No, but I don't care, because I know how to do it. I can do this again and again and again. And that to me is what motivates me as well. Now, everyone's going to be different, but that's what I look at having fun with, because I can do this the rest of my life and not work for someone else.
Right. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been fantastic to talk to you.
Thanks, Frank.
And it's been a while since we've talked, so I'm really, really glad that we could get together on this.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking me to come on, Frank, and I
Okay.
appreciate it, and I'm willing to help whatever I can in the group here.
All right. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.